Hello, and welcome to the Path of Most Persistence. This is a place where we hear and share tenacious stories of overcoming obstacles with our partners who dare to share a bit of their own personal paths. Charley Ayres is the Director of Industry Education Partnerships and joined the Central Texas Workforce Board staff in October of 2018 after serving as an economic development professional in Round Rock and Temple, Texas, for 16 years. In his current position, Charley is responsible for the delivery and development of the Student Occupational Awareness and Recognition (SOAR) program, a program designed to equip students with the skills and tools they need to be prepared for the workforce and to help foster economic growth. Charley's experience includes serving on the P20 Central Texas Regional Council, the Strategic Partners Education Advisory Council, Texas A&M Central Texas, and has also served as the co-chair of Workforce Development on the Board of Directors for the Texas Economic Development Council, and has been recognized with the Partner of the Year award from both Round Rock ISD and Killeen ISD. Charley, thank you so much for being with us today. We really look forward to the conversation.
No, thank you for having me here. I'm looking forward to it. I will say, it's always respectful when you're visiting a new area that you understand the cultures and the language of those areas. And so I took the trouble to understanding the language, and I wanted to start off by saying howdy.
Sweet.
So I want to fit right in. Howdy.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm going to walk all over campus later and just say howdy to everybody I see.
Well, you'll get a lot of the same back to you. So what else did you pick up in your preparation? Any other little nuggets you want to just drop right now, right as we begin?
No, I will tell you, it's an interesting relationship. I am a native Texan.
Yes.
However, I was born in Austin, and my father worked for the University of Texas for 35 years. So there's always been an interesting rub with Texas A&M.
Yes.
Even though I can say that I did not attend the University of Texas, but I think that's because my father worked for the University of Texas for 35 years, and all I heard was Texas, Texas, Texas. So it was, as a kid, you're just like, I'm going to do something different. Yeah. So there you go. But certainly enjoy College Station, and we're fortunate that we have a connection in Central Texas with Texas A&M Central Texas in Killeen.
Absolutely.
It's our 4-year institution for our region, other than University of Mary Hardin-Baylor, but it is the only public 4-year that we have. And so we're very proud of the work of Texas A&M and being part of the system. We consider ourselves fortunate.
Absolutely, and I love it, and I do want to talk about that relationship, but let's just get started with this conversation all about workforce.
Yes.
It's all in your background. You spent many, many years, and because we, as part of the Nuclear Power Institute, that's our mission, is to develop the workforce as well. So let's talk about it. Why are you in this sector? What keeps you in this area, and what inspires you?
So for most of my adult career, I have been involved in economic development, and economic development has a lot of moving parts to it. But typically, a large part of it is recruiting and retaining companies for the community to help produce job growth or create job growth. About 6 years ago, I started noticing a trend, and typically when I would fly to California or New York or any of these places where we were trying to recruit companies to come to Texas, and specifically Central Texas, it wasn't uncommon for companies to say, so tell me about your incentives. What kind of tax incentives do you have? Are there land grants? What is it that you can put on the table that would make it financially attractive for our company? And then about 6 years ago, I started noticing that companies quit asking about tax incentives, and they started asking about workforce. Tell us about your talent. What are your school districts doing? What kind of colleges do you have in your area? Are we able to hire that talent? And it became very clear to me very quickly that workforce development was the key to economic development going forward, and it pushed education to the forefront, and incentives, even though those are still part of most economic development projects.
Yes.
They're certainly secondary in this age that we're living in. Education is certainly primary, and talent that's available. So it just so happened about 4 years ago, it'll actually be 5 years in October, Susan Kamas, who is the executive director of the Central Texas Workforce Board and who I had known for many years, even in economic development, she approached me and said that they were developing a position that was going to be kind of an industry education partnership, because the state was rolling out a program, specifically the Texas Workforce Commission, in partnership with the Texas Higher Education Board and Texas Education Agency, that was really going to focus on preparing students for careers. And she felt like that the Central Texas Workforce Board would be one of the grantees for this program.
Yes.
So I applied for the position and obviously got the position, but that was my real reason and passion for moving from economic development into workforce development. So that's kind of why I'm at where I'm at right now. And it's certainly a passion every day, because I enjoy helping students see their pathway or realize their pathway. I'm of the generation that when you were in school, you just get your high school diploma, go to college, and then you'll figure it out after that. And the world has become so specialized, and there are so many different areas to go into now that it's really important that students begin to kind of understand what that is earlier on in their education.
For full transparency, I want the audience to know I'm totally biased in this conversation today, because you're already speaking all the languages that I love as a lifelong professional educator and as a person for whom I also sit on a workforce board. I sit on the Gulf Coast Workforce Board for Houston-Galveston area.
Very good.
So
very good.
I want you to talk about what it means to be on a workforce board, but also just how, again, something you said about it all basically begins with education. And as a professional educator, I love hearing that. I love that all different types of sectors are becoming more aware of that and also intentional about their programming and outreach. And then, of course, something that I really appreciate you, because recently an event that we had, you participated in, as far as inspiring young people. And there's a beauty and a strength in that. And you obviously demonstrated how that works perfectly in the program that you participated in. So thank you for that. With all of that being said, can you talk a little bit about what workforce boards do? And it all goes back to the Texas Workforce Commission. But what are the purposes for our audience? Why, they see these workforce boards maybe in their areas. They see workforce solution offices in their areas. What's the purpose?
The workforce boards are really a collaboration of employers, educators, and many times community representatives, but employers and educators play an important role in those boards. And the workforce boards help determine the direction of the workforce development for a particular, in our world we call it WDA, but I'll keep the TLAs at a minimum, the three-letter acronyms.
Well, now you have to tell us.
The workforce development area. There are 28 workforce development areas in Texas.
Very good.
And so every region has a workforce board that's overseeing the development of their area. The boards do everything from approving budgets, and that funding is coming from Department of Labor or the state of Texas. And so they have to approve budgets and make decisions on how those budgets are spent. And then they also will make decisions on the high demand jobs for that particular region. And those types of deals have to be approved by the board, and then they're sent to the Workforce Commission. And so each region in the state does have a targeted occupation list that hopefully the public schools, the colleges, everyone in that region are working toward to try to train individuals, or certainly make individuals aware of the opportunities in those high demand jobs. So the Workforce Board plays a vital role in the leadership and the direction of how education and job preparation are being done in their region. And it does, even though there is some overlap, as you might imagine, in the state of Texas, there is a little bit of variation from region to region. Yes. So they play a critical role, and it's an official board. I mean, it's it has legal parameters with that board. It's not just a group of folks like, hey, let's get together and make some decisions.
And some willy-nilly situation.
Right. And so there's always elected officials that are involved in those boards, from mayors to county judges, and so it's a pretty big responsibility, and yet it may be one of the best kept secrets, even though it is a public entity and it is funded by public money, and people are welcome to look into what their workforce board is doing. But I think part of that's because it's not like economic development in the sense of you go and you recruit a company and people see a building being built, and it's built within a year and a half or 2 years or whatever. With workforce development, that can start at elementary school or middle school.
Yes.
And sometimes you never see the fruits of your labors until years down the road. And maybe you don't even find out what became of that potential individual that was really a superstar at their college or at their high school, just the nature of the beast, so to speak. So sometimes workforce development is personally rewarding, but you don't always get the same glitz and fireworks and glamour as like a new building that's been developed. But you are developing a key aspect to the economy of a region.
Thank you. All of your points are so well taken, and I appreciate you explaining some of that to the audience. Again, we always like to highlight anything that's workforce development related, of course, but it's very intentional with the workforce boards around the state, the Texas Workforce Commission, because it is very intentional. It's very specific. The workforce boards not only have that mandate of supporting the industries, the communities in their areas, but also the funds that are allotted by the state of Texas for workforce. And you're right, sometimes you can't see the fruits of your labor, but ultimately our economic development, our industry is the ultimate tell, I suppose, in how well they're working.
Yeah.
Because is industry doing well? Do they have the employees that are needed? And I think from all indications, the Texas economy is doing well.
Absolutely.
And many companies want to come here for lots of different reasons. So we're very happy about all of those things.
Absolutely.
That's good. From your perspective, what is the one major aspect that maybe perhaps workforce or industry doesn't understand about education, and what does education not understand or appreciate from industry or workforce?
So as far as industry's relationship to education, I'm not sure there's a lack of understanding as much as there is a lack of time. Mm-hmm. I don't think employers realize the investment that they could make in education and how it would prove out to be an investment in themselves. I think they're very focused on their business, which they should be.
Yes.
But more and more businesses are coming into the education world to partner with education, and I think they're beginning to see the value in that. But I think more than anything, it's just the issue of I have X amount of time in my day. I'm trying to develop a product and I'm trying to make a profit, and I don't have time to go to meetings. When they don't realize what's going on in the world of education. Right. There's been many times I've had employers tour even our public schools, some of their career and technical education facilities.
Yes.
And they're just simply overwhelmed by the type of equipment, the type of rigor, the type of training that students are getting even at the high school level.
Yes.
You know, more than on one occasion, I've had an employer say, this looks nothing like my woodworking class I had in high school.
Yes.
And it's a fact that it's not woodworking anymore. It's
Right.
very much CAD systems and pretty high-end machinery that students are learning to manipulate and to use and program. So I think part of it is if educators would, if industries would take the time, if businesses would take the time to partner with education, and maybe the first step's not even like, quote, partner, just begin to sit down at the table with them and see, I think they could see that there could be some real partnerships created, and there could be real, selfishly, there could be some benefit for their business. They could really connect to the talent pools that are coming out of our colleges or out of our high schools and create pipelines that would save them a lot of expense and recruiting efforts just simply because of those partnerships. On the education side, I think their main issue is part of it is understanding how to reach the employers. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is a lot of education involves a great deal of planning and strategizing and curriculum writing and
Yes.
putting things down. And the councils that I'm on, sometimes I think educators forget that the business's time is valuable. So they need to
Yes.
figure out what is it that I can involve them in that really is of value to them, and the things that they're not going to be participating in or they don't have the time to,
Right.
like, coming and sitting and working through a rubric or a strategic plan. It's like really find out where their programming connects with the industries and learn how to make that sell. Because more times than not, the industries are looking for talent. So if education can make that sell and help industry and business leaders understand, this is why we need you involved. We're trying to build this.
That's right.
I think that would be a key point. And of course, the other thing too is certainly in the Central Texas region, and I think probably most of Texas at this point,
Yes.
Second only to healthcare, education is like the fastest growing industry.
Mm.
And many of our school districts are already short staffed. They can't hire enough educators, whether they're teachers, counselors, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, everyone that participates in the world of education. They can't hire enough of those people. So sometimes education is just simply overwhelmed with the daily to-dos,
Yes.
and they don't have the time to reach out to employers. That's
right.
like, yeah, that would be great, but that's like the luxury model, and I can't afford the luxury model. I'm just trying to, I met a career and technical director the other day, and we were talking about the program that we do and how we could help their school district with some of their career development opportunities. And we were having trouble connecting to set up a meeting to kind of make the strategy. And I began to notice from her emails that we couldn't connect with the meeting because she was the CTE coordinator,
Mm-hmm.
but she taught a health science class, and she drove one of the school buses in the morning. And so it's kind of like when you've got educators that are wearing that many hats, it's
Yes.
really hard for them to get out into the business community and start building those partnerships. Another area where your workforce board could really come in handy and
That's
help
right.
partner with you and help put those partnerships together.
That's so interesting because it's ironic that some of the same issues and obstacles that industry has are the same that educators have. They don't have the time. Sometimes you don't know who to contact. But that is the beauty and power, I think, in what we do on the workforce development side, and certainly with our mission of developing programs for workforce development, I think we can help build some of those bridges because of our access, just like your own access. And it's about just identifying, helping the two sides, industry and education, to identify resources and to identify the obstacles. Is it time? Is there a time constraint? Is it a resource limitation? Is it access? What is it to better maximize those areas where we really can meet up? And I think that's the beauty and benefit of what we do in our work.
I agree, 100%. Yes.
I like that. It makes me always think of conferring, compromising, and conciliating. I love that, those 3 C's about him, because I think we can apply those 3 in every area, but most definitely in workforce development, just coming together, talking about what we need to do, and then finding a path forward so that we can ultimately get to that goal.
Yes.
I want to spend some time on the SOAR program. I had the good fortune of being aware of it, but I would like you, as being a pivotal person in that program, what is it about truly, and is there anything that we can do to better support, or even a community member, how can they support this program?
Yeah, so the SOAR program, the Student Organization, or the Student Occupational Awareness program, really at the state level is referred to as the Education Outreach Program. About 4 years ago, the Tri-Agency Partnership, which Governor Abbott formulated between the Texas Higher Education Agency, the Texas Workforce Commission, and Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, they came together and they began to try to figure out what was a way that we could help prepare students for careers better. And most people's answer to that right away is, well, they have school counselors. Yeah. But the problem is school counselors aren't necessarily counselors anymore. There's a lot of other work that they're having to do. And so there was a gap there. And so they started a pilot program with 6 of the boards across the state of Texas. Central Texas was blessed to happen to be one of the 6 that were chosen. And so what we did is we put together a staff, and we develop formalized agreements with school districts for our staff, for lack of a better term, to be part of their staff. And we go into the classrooms and we do everything. The workshops in the classrooms are employability skills, resume writing, interview skills, those types of deals. And we happen to have our program organized to where it's very much in line with the Texas Essential Skills and Knowledge, the TEKS is what they call it at the TEA. And we align those with those so the school understands that we're speaking their language, and we're making sure that they're meeting what their requirements are. But we do that, and currently we have formal agreements with 13 school districts in Central Texas. We just finished the 4th quarter of 2022. During that quarter, I have a staff of 5 individuals. Many of them have education backgrounds. They're former teachers. I do have one young lady who was like a career counselor at a college, a for-profit college that for my benefit happened to go out of business, and she was looking around for a job, and so it was a perfect fit. But these 5 individuals go to the school districts, and I tell them all the time, they're really the rock stars. They're doing the heavy lifting. Chelsea, Amber, Mara, Suzanne, and Erica.
Nice. You said their names. Very good.
Yeah, give them all shout outs. But I tell them all the time, y'all are the ones that are really making it happen. I'm just the eye candy for the program, and they're making all the big changes. At the end of last quarter, as a matter of fact, from October to December, they engaged just over 11,000 students. And that's across 7 counties in Central Texas. So they're doing a lot of good. And like I said, outside of the workshops, we have done some summer camps. And actually last year we partnered with Texas A&M Central Texas, and we did a cybersecurity camp for high school students.
Nice.
And so we try to plug in wherever we can. And even though we don't necessarily work with college students, our target is primarily middle school, high school. We still try to partner with our colleges when they're working with high school or middle school students, and that typically happens in some of their summer camps. So we do all of that work, and we do everything from some of our smaller rural school districts just do not have the resources or the staff, for example, to do like career assessments or interest surveys. We'll do that for them. We have 25 Oculus VR headsets, so we have a virtual career navigation if students want to learn how to repair a robotic arm, but maybe they're sixth graders and they can't actually go into an environment where they can do that. They can do it virtually with the VR headsets. So we try to provide a lot of resources, but at the end of the day, we have found that the engagement is really critical, and the students are learning a great deal about how to prepare for their future. And it's so funny because more times than not, we'll even have the teacher say, like the teacher who's hosting the workshop, will have the teacher say, "I sure wish they had this when I was in school." So it's been a good program for Central Texas. It's working well for the state. 18 of the boards now in the state are conducting the program. The board that you sit on, Gulf Coast, they are part of that education outreach program. And so we meet on a monthly basis. We all huddle and try to determine what's the best direction, what are we doing right, what are we doing wrong, what could be done better. But we get a great deal of support from our public schools, and all of our superintendents are on board with it, and that's typically what I'll do. I'm, for lack of a better term, I'm more the business development person. I'll go and visit with the administrative staff and say, here's the program, here's what we can do. Do you want to sign an agreement to do it? And that agreement basically is just like giving us access to the campus, and everybody knows we're a partner and we're supposed to be there. And in most cases, it also provides an office for us on the campus.
Oh, nice.
And so typically the SOAR specialist, when they're on campus, they have an office that they go to kind of get their workshop together or do their admin work before they go to the classroom. So we're very, very pleased with it. We hope to be expanding that program. As a matter of fact, we're working currently with one of the school districts in the region to next year actually provide a career and college prep course that would be like part of the student's schedule, and the students would receive credit for it, but it would be our staff leading the course. And to keep my staff sane is what we're going to do is we're going to just every 6 weeks, they have 6-week semesters. Every 6 weeks, we'll swap out a staff member. And so one staff will cover a particular unit, whether that's college prep or whether it's, resume writing. And then we'll just share the load with the staff so they can all kind of get the experience, but at the same time not feel like they're tied to a classroom.
So overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And how do you measure the success or areas of opportunity for growth in this particular program? Since you're working with so many different schools, do they assess you guys or do you self-assess?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. We send, each representative has a survey, or actually a link to a survey, and they send that to the teacher that hosted the event or allowed them in the classroom. They send it to the principals, whatever, and we ask them to fill out that survey, just kind of an evaluation so we can see where we're hitting the mark. To be completely honest, which you know this from your line of work and the years that you've been doing all this, you can send out 100 surveys and you might get 5 back. But that's okay. We've learned a long time ago, dance with who wants to dance. And those that don't want to dance, don't sweat it or worry about it.
And hey, there might be people that are watching you guys dance and really be captivated by it and then want to be a partner.
That's right, and then want to be involved.
Yes.
And then what I do with the staff is every Monday, we have a virtual huddle, and that's just simply because we're scattered to the 4 corners of the wind.
Yes.
And sometimes we're miles apart. But then once a month on a Friday, we put on the schedule 2 to 5, and we meet in person. Nice. And during those meetings, I typically ask them, I'll say, as a letter grade, we're going to go through and grade our school districts where we think they are and working with us. And so I'll have them share with me their perception of the work. And then, of course, one of the really fortunate things that's happened is the Bell County superintendents, which off the top of my head, I don't know how many school districts are in Bell County, but it is the 800-pound gorilla in our region. But the Bell County superintendents have a monthly meeting where all the superintendents meet together. They discuss their school calendars to see if everybody's kind of on the same page. I've been invited to that meeting, and so I'm on the agenda, so I can talk with the superintendents to get feedback. So we are constantly kind of doing self-evaluation in addition to whatever we receive from those surveys. But I think it's important for me as a supervisor or a leader or whatever to have the perspective of the worker bees as to how they feel like that's going. And it's always pretty interesting to overlay and compare what I hear from superintendents and what I hear from staff. It's not usually too far off base, but it does kind of give me some good direction if the superintendent says, I haven't really seen the SOAR staff lately, but then the SOAR staff members telling me, I can't get anyone to engage with me at that school district. It's been like a month since anyone's called. Then I can follow up on that and really have some good information as to what's going on here. Here, this might be the reason why you're not seeing them on campus. Is they've sent 5 emails and they're having trouble connecting. So it's a constant process.
So with that perspective of superintendents, your own staff, and actual students, what have you learned most from these 3 groups? And on the opposite side of that, what have you learned from them that maybe not, we have the aspect of inspiration, what inspires you, but is there an area that also haunts you, that really nags at you from those 3 perspectives?
A little bit. Haunt may be a better term than nag. I find in the state we're doing a lot of effort, and of course partnerships are critical. But what I see happening sometimes, and the disclaimer here is this is just Charley's opinion. This doesn't come from the workforce throne room or anything. We duplicate efforts a lot, and what I'm afraid of is all of us only have so much bandwidth. And at some point, I don't want it to become a burden on the colleges or the schools because we've got 5 different entities that either want to be involved with what they're doing or, but find ways that the entities can partner, for example, like the tri-agency partnership. And I think none of that is sinister. I think more than anything is more times than not, which, credit to the Institute, because this is what we learned from networking and connecting together, is many times the right hand doesn't know that the left hand is doing that. And it's not like we're trying to undermine this program or we think ours is better. We just didn't know it exists. And so I think any opportunities that organizations have, for example, the Institute inviting me to be part of their conference, and any time we have those opportunities to partner or to utilize resources from somewhere else, I think is critical because I do know that there are 3 or 4 organizations that are on nearly every school district campus that we're on. And sometimes I sit back and I think, when is this going to get to be too much? So far, it seems like we all kind of have our lane, and one of us really addresses college and college, awareness and orientation, and one of us is addressing career stuff. But I also know that it's real easy to bleed into other lanes. But my ultimate goal, certainly in Central Texas, is that all things education in regards to workforce come through the Central Texas Workforce Board, and
Nice.
we're the clearinghouse for that. So, and that's just a selfish goal, but we've partnered well with the P20 Regional Council, and like I said, more times than not, we have folks in the area that are trying to start up something, and it's really just a simple conversation of, hey, by the way, did you know that this is going on? And they're like,
Yes.
oh, really? Okay, well, so that's probably the one thing is I want it to be, whatever we do, it needs to be effective because it's a big world the students are stepping into.
That's right.
And I'm not sure any of us really, really know what life is like when we step out when we're in middle school. We see our parents or we see friends or whatever, but I think more times than not we forget the anxiety that could be with you need to decide on your pathway before you get to high school, and it's like, well, I was just hoping Billy didn't break up with me by the weekend. I mean,
yes.
the future for them is so far out there, but it's funny, those of us that have already made that journey, we look back and we're like, no, the future's not that far.
Yeah.
It gets here really quick. But then when you tell them that, they're just like, oh, bless your heart, you're so old.
You're so old.
Yeah.
I can understand.
And you're like, yeah, but I just left McCallum High School yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
It
I don't
feels
even know how I
like,
got
yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult. And so that's the main thing, is to make sure that it's effective for the students, because those are a lot of decisions. And if they have really good unified guidance, it can certainly make some decisions for them a little less painful, and certainly more on the mark, and they won't waste some time, so to speak, wandering in the wilderness, looking for the light as to what am I supposed to do. It was so funny, at Thanksgiving I went to the Georgia Aquarium. Have you ever been to Georgia Aquarium?
No.
Oh my gosh. So it's as awesome as they say it is,
Yeah.
and everyone should take a trip. But I went to the Georgia Aquarium. I had been several times in my economic development travels. My wife had never been, but she had watched the show on Discovery Channel. She was like, that looks so awesome. I was like, yeah, we should go. Well, the dolphin show at the Georgia Aquarium is simply amazing. First of all, they have an indoor kind of an amphitheater. It looks like it sits about 5,000 people, and it's packed every show. But one of the things they do at the dolphin show is they bring a volunteer out of the audience, always a small child, and they bring the small child up and they said, today you're going to be a dolphin trainer. And so it's a very educational experience, and they have the child stand in the just the ankle deep water. They give them some rubber boots and they stand there and they teach the child all of the sign language to make the dolphin do all the different tricks that they can do. And so then they let the child send the dolphin out across the pool, have the dolphin do flips, have the dolphin swim on its back, and they do all that. And of course, the crowd just goes crazy, and it's just a very touching moment.
Yes.
And the dolphin swims back over, and the little child gives it its fish and its treat, and the dolphin hugs up on the child, and the child pets it. And then the dolphin trainer from Georgia Aquarium, he says, didn't Sally do just a great job today? Everyone give her a round of applause and welcome our newest dolphin trainer to the Georgia Aquarium. And everybody claps, and then he leans over to the small child, and this is what got us so tickled. He leaned over to the small child and he said, so what do you want to be when you grow up? And she said, a massage therapist. So who knows what
Exactly.
pathway kids take or what they have in there. She may have a relative that's a massage therapist, or she
Right.
may have gone with her mom and saw this and
Yes.
thought, that's really cool, I'm going to do that. But it's a challenge. I mean, it's not easy when you have so many options and people are throwing so many things at you. So I think it's a critical job, but I just always want us to all be on the same page and pushing in the same direction.
Oh, that's such an important message. You know, it's all about perspective and us respecting or honoring where our students are.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
because what they're going through, sometimes for us, because we've been through it, it's been a few years, you know, we've had a few experiences as we age. So we look back on those years sometimes as sometimes trivial, but when you're going through it, that is your life.
Absolutely.
So if you are concerned about Billy breaking up with you or whoever,
That's right.
That weekend or whatever it is or whatever is going to happen on social media, that is everything to you.
I agree. People, those of us that have walked through the journey, we're like, oh, well, it's just puppy love. And we forget it's real to the puppies.
Well, it is real to the puppies.
It's like we're getting married when we get out of school. And it's just like, yeah, well, you're probably going to have 3 or 4 boyfriends or girlfriends before, but that's okay.
But right now.
But that's the most serious thing in life
Yes.
right now. And it's like, don't talk to me about being a structural engineer.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make it to the weekend.
Yeah, I need some more likes here. And it's true. And I think it behooves us all to try to go back to that space when we did experience that so many years, for some of us many, many years ago. But it is important. And I think as we continue to build out our programs and to work with young people, it's important to honor it, again, where they are. But also, isn't it, Charley, too, important that we're exposing them to all these opportunities and pathways, but it can be overwhelming because it seems as though when I think back of growing up, again, many, many years ago, you can be a teacher, a nurse, a lawyer, but now the sky's the limit on the possibilities of not only what you can be, but how you can work, in what environment. Is it at home? Is it there? Is it half and half? Is it all virtual? So for me, I think one of the most critical aspects about building out our programs is to somehow incorporate the notion of nimbleness, just being flexible and open to the possibilities that are going to come your way, may come your way. Something's going to happen, and just being nimble in that whole process as we grow, and then somehow nurturing the development or maybe even the joy of pivoting and learning constantly. Isn't that part of it, or should it be part of it?
No, absolutely. And I like the word pivoting because you may, my career started as a graphic designer.
Yes.
And then business development manager. So you need to be prepared for that. I think, one of the key things about it is, in education anyway, when we're not specifically training a student, so for example, I walked past the Zachary Engineering Building to get here. So those students are pretty far along in their journey, and they're training to be engineers. Before we get to that point, I think it's important that students understand, and you alluded to it, understand the options, but also be able to understand what it means to evaluate those options.
Yes.
So they can chart a clear course. If that's where their effort is, if they're going to follow their effort, they need to understand what that journey looks like. And what I mean by that specifically is, so for example, I was speaking to a group of students at a high school, and all these students were in a bioscience class. And they were very advanced students in the high school, but they all wanted to be bioscience researchers. So in discussion, one of them commented that they really enjoyed bioscience. They didn't care that much about school, but they enjoyed bioscience. And so we had to pull over and have a discussion how much education you are going to need to have if you want to be a researcher in bioscience.
Yes.
And also, do you like living in Central Texas? Because the bioscience hubs are kind of Houston, Boston, San Diego, Atlanta. There's a good chance that you may have to move in order to pursue your career. And I think sometimes students don't get through that process. They don't understand the components, the steps that are going to have to be taken. And I think if they're exposed to those opportunities early, then they can be more educated about, okay, well, I would love to be in bioscience, but I don't want to leave home, or I'm not really college. Well, so maybe there's another component of healthcare that puts me, whether it's a lab technician or something, maybe that's more suitable for me. But it's really about where are they at and what can they pursue. But before they jump off the diving board, they need to understand how deep the water is. And for most of us in previous generations,
Yes.
we didn't understand that. And sometimes we ended up going to multiple schools.
Yes.
Or we took off in one direction, and then, I mean, to this day, I share with people, I worked in a marketing firm, and the gentleman that worked in the bindery, literally putting the books together, had a master's degree in government history from the University of Texas. Now, I know being on Texas A&M campus, they would say, well, that's what a master's degree at UT will get you is stapling books.
I didn't say
but
that.
But no, he was an extremely intelligent individual. And one day we were having lunch and I said, it just seems like an odd pairing that you're working in the production department of a marketing firm. You're literally stapling books together, but you have a master's in government history. Were you going to teach? Oh, no, I never wanted to teach. And I said, well, were you going into politics? Oh, no. And I could never get it, but it was in my mind. I was like, why did you spend so much time and money in government history? And I told him, I said, you do know that you didn't need a master's to work in the production area. I mean, you could have gone to a technical college or an associate degree or whatever. But I think there's a lot of people in the world like that they're working in a profession right now and their bachelor's degree is in something that has absolutely nothing to do with what they're doing. It hasn't kept them from being successful, but it makes you wonder, how much further along would you have been, or what kind of position would you have held if you knew early on that was the track that you wanted to be on, and every bit of your training related to what you were ultimately going to do, whether it was kind of in a general sense or what. So I think more than anything, students, particularly middle school students, just need to see options and know how to evaluate those options.
And to extend that out a little bit further too, I think there is a beauty in individuals that do have or have chosen a career or a position that is not in alignment with their educational track. And I think so because maybe life presented them options that maybe they didn't even realize they were going to have this great satisfaction, or life just led them to that situation and maybe they haven't been able to move out of it. But also, this is the thing I love about education, and it doesn't always have to be formal degrees, but just in that area of continuing to learn, lifelong learning, is that even if it's an area or a topic that maybe may not have an obvious direct connection with what you're currently doing or you currently aspire, but any education to me seems like it will add value in some respect. Because as I see creativity, that really lends its hand to that creative aspect of our mind and our way of thinking, is that when we have influence or information in a whole different area, it adds to, maybe, again, it could be to a direct link to your current position or task, but just to you as an individual, just the beauty of how you see the world is because you have all this other knowledge that's outside of what you normally do.
No, I would agree with that. What I would add to it is, for years and years and years, we defined education with 4 walls and a textbook.
That's correct.
Innovation has helped broaden that scope. And honestly, I probably learned as much in the last 2 weeks listening to this podcast as I did my last 2 years at McCallum High School.
Hey, listen, I didn't tell him to say that, guys.
Yeah, that's right. That's an unpaid endorsement. But the fact being is, whether it's podcast, whether it's YouTube channel, whether it's a formal classroom setting, education is part of daily life, and I think it would be helpful to most students to understand that it's beyond 4 walls.
Exactly.
That everything that you're experiencing should be going onto your resume.
Yes.
In some form or some fashion. And what employers tell us, and oddly enough, this is one of the things that formal education, and when I say formal, I don't mean just post-secondary. I include public school, everyone in that. It's something that has not been addressed much. Employers say the largest percentage of the people that they fire are because of their lack of employability skills. Well, you learn that from getting in there and talking with people and building relationships and understanding how world works. And you don't necessarily draw that from a textbook. And I tell some of our superintendents all the time, they're like, is there some internship programs at any of our tech companies for our students? We want them to learn, to work. I agree totally with that. But I tell the superintendents, look, they can get a valuable education at a fast food restaurant, because if you screw up someone's food order, you're really learning how to deal with stuff then.
Yes.
That's problem solving at, a master's level. And some of that's just the interaction and learning how you're supposed to play in the sandbox. And that's what you hear from employers all the time is the number one issue.
And I appreciate you bringing that up, because you hear that term, those employability skills, those skills. But Charley, for our audience, what are those skills? What are just some of the top five, so to speak?
Yeah, so some of those, and typically just for the sake of it, you'll hear them referred to as soft skills.
Yes.
I hate to refer to them as soft skills because there's not anything soft about them. They're quite hard to learn sometimes, just depending on the environment and everything. But some of those are things like problem solving and communication. I do a little kind of a career day for middle school students, and what I tell them is 4 things you need to be no matter what you become, and that is be careful, because, and I actually show them a picture of a crocodile sitting on a rock with a herd of wildebeest going through the river, not knowing the crocodile's there. Yes. And I tell them not everything that looks like a rock is a rock. And so watch who you hang with. What may seem to be an innocent crowd and an innocent activity could impact your future. Yes. I tell them be careful, be cheerful. And employers talk about drama that people bring to work with them. So really it's things like communication skills, critical thinking, problem solving. It's conscientiousness. More employers talking about how much trouble they have just to get people to show up to work on time. Yes. So being conscientious. Those are some of the things that fall into that, working in a team, collaboration, which is still why that was so critical. And I know as an educator, you're fully aware of this, but we're still seeing, especially at the public school level, the results of shutting everything down for the pandemic. We all forgot how to get along with each other. Yes. And so students are trying to get caught up on that, because even though you may have a class on Zoom or Google Meets or whatever, it's still not that interactive. And what I think is so funny is, it wasn't very many years ago at McCallum High School, if I was looking on Valerie's paper, I would be scolded and sent to the office for looking on someone else's paper. And now in the classroom, it's like, y'all need to get together as a group and work on this, share a paper. And so it's all about collaboration. But that's the way it is in the workforce. And so those are some of those employability skills that sometimes get left out of the curriculum just simply because I think, again, there's only so much bandwidth, and our schools are being graded on other things. But the employability skills is something a partnership with Workforce could certainly be brought onto campus and introduced. Absolutely. And whether educators realize it or not, and even whether students realize it or not, it is still, or certainly in Central Texas, my guess is it's also, when we talk about Gulf Coast, the number one employer with problems is being able to get along and work as a team and be at work and be cheerful, not be a rain cloud, not bring the drama with you, because most of our employers tell us we can train individuals how to run a piece of equipment. We can train them how we want this spreadsheet to look. We can't teach you how to get along with people. So, they say the number one reason they fire people is because employability skills,
Yes.
not because they didn't know how to do the job. It's because of the employability skills.
And the crazy thing about all those characteristics, those employability skills, those soft skills, is that those are also the characteristics just for a happy, healthy life.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't just stay within the four walls of your work, but how you are at home, how you are with your neighbors, just being a pleasant person, a person regarding problem solving. Sometimes to young people or even individuals, that sounds so foreign. Oh, is that like a math skill? No, it's just figuring it out. Like, there's a problem, figure it out. Whatever it takes to get it done. And those aspects. So if we can figure it out in one area of our life, it transcends every other area. If we can just figure those magical skills
No,
out.
I don't have any study or empirical data on this, but my guess would be if you talk to most professionals about what progressed them in their careers or how they received raises, probably most of us, I know I would tell you because people liked working with us. And I don't want to oversimplify it, nor do I want to substitute it, because training and education are vastly important. But there is a little bit of truth to it's not what you know, it's who you know. And do those people enjoy working with you? Because if they do, you'll be invited to the party more than you won't be if you're someone that comes in and you have a good spirit and
or
you're
banging at the door to let me in.
and you're positive and you want to, move forward.
And you produce, that you're an actual
Absolutely.
teammate that is producing.
Absolutely.
And so that's all very true. So I'm going to pivot just a little bit.
Okay.
I want to know how it is that you have become Partner of the Year. You've received that award twice by two different ISDs. So what does it mean to be Partner of the Year?
Yeah, well, so it means that the other nominees were arrested and they have a police record. And so it was like, well, bless his heart, Charley's still available. He hasn't been picked up for anything, so let's give it to him. No, Partner of the Year just means that for their criteria, you have gone the extra mile in working with the district, whether that's in regards to an education foundation or strategic planning meetings. And obviously, because of my position, I have the pleasure of being able to be involved in a lot of those things. And it is always an honor when school districts recognize the work and recognize you for that work, because it also gives me an opportunity to kind of carry the workforce flag. And that, it's workforce that gives me that benefit to be able to be involved in that kind of level. So we do a lot of, like, as you imagine with the program, we do a lot of work for students, but I try to make myself available to the districts outside of just the planned program. So, for example, one of the districts, their drama team may be having a play that they're hosting for the community. I will try to go and show support to what that school district's doing. Or a football game, especially if I know two of the schools we're partners with are like playing each other. It gives me a chance to kind of catch everybody at one time. So nice. You try to show that support, and certainly when they call you and they ask for something, you try to make yourself available for that, and then they recognize that. I tell our 5 staff all the time, as a matter of fact, if they're listening to this podcast, they'll be so sick of hearing it, but I tell them all the time, be responsive and be willing to be inconvenienced. Those two things will take you very far in your professional career, no matter what you're doing. If you respond and you're willing to go out of your way a little bit to make something happen, people appreciate that, and the school districts just recognize that through those honors.
Lovely. And as we begin to wind down, I want to know, what have been some of your most rewarding programs or just interactions? Just what have been some standouts in your area of work and influence? What are some of the things you're most proud of?
Well, I will tell you, number one, probably my my shining star, and this isn't meant to be mushy or anything like that, because it's honest. It's the honest truth. I wouldn't even be where I'm at. Is my wife. Her name is Denise, but you can call her Muffin. She goes by Muffin. She is the director of career and technical education for the Temple School District. So obviously, I have a lot of cheat notes that other people in my position across the state, there's 18 people like me across the state, but I have cheat notes that a lot of them don't have, because she's very involved in TEA, so she can kind of give me the backstory of legislative decisions or policies that are going on and help redirect me. So she has been a huge help. But I will tell you, one of the things that kind of catalyzed most what we were doing is, one morning I was speaking to a group of students in an auditorium at one of our area high schools. And I noticed this young lady when she came in. She had her the hood of her hoodie pulled over, and she had earbuds in. So she literally, in a sense, was shutting herself off from the world. And she came and she sat down, and I was talking about just a little bit what we were saying a while ago about how you need to understand that when you're in school, your resume is a blank sheet of paper, and everything you do is being logged onto your resume. It's being written onto your resume, and that it only takes one weekend and one decision that could really damage your resume. It may not keep you from getting a job, but it could keep you from getting a job that you want. And so I'm telling this, and the whole time I'm telling this, she is sitting 2 rows behind all the other students in this auditorium to herself. And about this point, while I'm visiting with them, because we're doing interview skills and just some general employability skills items, I'm thinking she's probably about half asleep at this point, even though I have learned that the mind will only comprehend what the seat can endure. So I try to keep things short and to the point. When it was over and the teachers, this was like 5 classes together, and the teachers got their classes and began to dismiss them, she had gotten up and she was leaning up against the wall of the auditorium. And I had asked for questions, but a lot of times in those settings, students aren't comfortable to ask a question. But I thought I would walk up the aisle toward where she was standing just to try to make contact and a hello or something. And as I started to walk up the aisle, she dropped her hoodie and she said, "I have a question." And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "Could you come here?" So she didn't want to ask it out loud. And so I walked over to her and I said, "What is your question?" And she said, I've gotten in a lot of trouble at school. Do you think I could still get a job? And I was having to like pull it together to keep from losing it in front of her, because it made me realize that even the ones that you do not think care or they're listening, students care about their future, and they do care about where they're headed. And this young lady just reinforced to me that the SOAR program, the Education Outreach Program, is important, and students do think about what happens after school. Do I need more school? Do I need special training? Do I need to just get into the workforce? But they do think about that. And even the ones that you think are completely isolated and don't care to be involved, it's something that's on their mind. And they're listening more than you think they listen. So that was a huge moment for me. That it was kind of rewarding and, reality slapping me in the face at the same time. But it was pretty moving to me. And this is actually the first time I've ever told that without just crying, because I tried to tell it to our board and I just lost it while I was telling them. And I was like, pull it together. Good Lord. But she just touched my heart so much, because my perception of her is, okay, here's another problem child, and she doesn't want to be engaged. She doesn't want to participate. She doesn't care, but she was soaking it all in. And her biggest concern was, I haven't behaved myself. how will that impact? So it obviously opened the door to have a moment and share with her about it's never too late. Okay, you've gotten in trouble in school. You can start today. It's never too late to start doing the right thing. So I love those things because you really see it having an impact.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for sharing that story. And I think that goes back to our own perceptions of young people who we interact with and around, that we have to remove ourselves and not see things as they
Absolutely.
are, but as they can be. And on that note, Charley, we'll just wrap it up. And I appreciate you spending this time today.
Thank you.
But most definitely for sharing that story. Beautiful. And I hope it compels everyone to think about our students in that way of being eager, although they may not demonstrate it. But I appreciate your eagerness and your enthusiasm and your passion for working with young people on workforce issues. And I certainly appreciate how you recognized your wife and your team for all their work and their influence on you as well.
Well, they're the ones doing all the hard work.
Well,
especially the wife. She has to deal with it all the time. So
I understand, but I'm sure it's not all hard work for her as well. But on that note, I want to thank our audience for listening. I hope you've listened to the entire conversations and all of our other conversations on all of our platforms. And for me, again, I express my appreciation and gratitude and respect for what you do and your work coming in today. But also to our audience, I hope this gives you an opportunity to appreciate the work that is being done in the state of Texas through all levels, if it's not the Texas Workforce Commissions, but all the boards and all those silent individuals who do the work every day to make it a better place to live and work in the state of Texas. Thank you and have a wonderful day.